Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Alex. Good morning, and thank you all so much for coming here this morning and for inviting me to speak yet again at this conference. I've been here a few years now, and I do sit there wondering, I hope they're not getting bored. But I thank you for the welcome as well. There's no question it's a privilege to be here year after year, and I'm looking forward to the rest of today's programme. But I've seen that we've been on a journey these last few years, and I hope you feel that I've been very much there with you on that journey. But I feel we are today in a better place than we were 3 or 4 years ago when I first spoke at this conference. There's no question we've heard today from Jersey Water. We've heard today from Hannah, obviously, the Jersey Farmers Union. We'll hear from others. Thank you for putting on this conference. In itself, this conference helps bind us together as an industry. It helps bring us together, understanding that agriculture in Jersey is a lot of parts. It's no one thing. To be honest, just the pollinator crop competition, Hannah mentioned the complexity in creating the competition, and then I didn't understand that until I saw the prizes, and suddenly you realise every element of farming has complexity. So something as simple as what sounds as simple as a pollinator crop competition suddenly becomes a lot more complex than you think. And that is something that I have learned a lot about over the last few years. But it's also something I think we need to help islanders understand. There is no simple life in farming. It's incredibly difficult. And that's one of the reasons why I stand here with you and want you to help you succeed. So, as I've mentioned, this is the third opportunity I've had to address this conference. I've been reflecting on the changes that we've witnessed over the last 3 years and consider how we as government, and especially my department, are helping the farming sector adapt to change and meet the inevitable challenges of the future. Yes, farming remains an intrinsic part of Jersey's identity. That's something which is so important to me. I believe it's so important to the island. But I also know how close we have come to losing that fundamentally important part of the island's identity. I think today, and among what I've said, but also things that Alex has said and others will say today, I do believe we've turned a corner. I'm not saying that because I want you to believe it. It's from you that I get that impression. And I really hope that is the case. Tell me if I'm wrong. Please do. But I think we're on the right track now. We know that farming shapes our beautiful countryside and landscape, our island heritage, our culture, and definitely, as we've seen already, our international identity. We know that the Jersey cow is iconic the world over. And Hannah just pointed out what's happening around the world in countries that you would never think that Jersey's got a direct link with, but it has. The RJA and HS say the cow is now the second most populous dairy cow on the planet. That's incredible from an island of our size. Absolutely incredible. The dairy sector is an excellent example of how a well-organised cooperative approach can deliver fantastic products for the island, for our consumers, whilst also developing value-added exports, which bring financial viability and add to Jersey's reputation for the highest quality standards. I had the luck and the pleasure to be sitting next to Phil Lemaitre yesterday, chair of the dairy, and he was telling me some of the things that have been going on at the dairy, the export products. It's truly incredible. Please do ask Phil or Eamon if you see them. Just ask them to tell you about the exports and what's going on in the export world, because those exports underpin our consumption of milk in this island as well. So we need them. But it's also, as Phil was telling me yesterday, much more complex than you would think. Balancing the exports and the local consumption is really difficult. But I thank the dairy for doing that. The Jersey Raw New Potato remains one of Britain's most famous seasonal products, and that is now recognised under the British Geographical Indication Protection Scheme. We all know that our island growers maintain cultivation traditions which span almost 150 years of continuous production. And that was something I think I picked up, Alex, from your advert. There was a sense of the tradition that I believe may come through in those adverts. That was something I thought picked up. That story of the 150 years helps promote our sustainability and flies the flag for Jersey produce more widely in every major UK retailer. This is testament to the skills and resilience of those engaged in this trade. Our island farming system is, however, built on more than just milk and potatoes. Yes, they do remain key economic factors of production, but diversity is an extremely important ingredient for a sustainable and resilient farming and food system. All contributions to this system are valued and are increasingly recognised by government and rewarded directly under the credit-based Rural Support Scheme. I'm delighted to confirm that in 2024, more than 80 rural businesses were active on the Rural Support Scheme. That's more than double the number who were on the scheme 4 years ago. And that is in large part to the support that we're now providing to smallholders, which wasn't there before, which creates succession, helps create innovation as well. Every business on the rural support scheme plays a vital role in ensuring we have a robust and viable rural economy, regardless of the size of the business or the particular area in which they operate. Just 2 years ago, I stood here and admitted that despite farming's historical significance to our island and enormous value it brings, there had been a steady reduction in government support up to 2018 over a number of decades. Successive governments had drawn down Jersey's support for agriculture, at the same time as neighbouring jurisdictions had done the opposite and increased their own support for agriculture. As a result, the sector had been competing on an unlevel playing field, and the pressures this brought had reached a peak. At the time, a few years ago, I said to you that whilst this trend had been reversed, we needed to accelerate the increase in funding that was expected to maintain a sustainable rural economy and preserve not only this industry, but also the island we know for future generations. Standing here 2 years on, I'm pleased to say that I believe we've managed to reverse that trend. This has been achieved by a combination of factors, not least of which has been the strength of our democratic process. Members of our States Assembly voted on Deputy Luce's proposition last year to support increased spending on both the rural and marine support schemes. Some of you may recall that not one single member of the States Assembly voted against the proposition. That clearly demonstrated that support for farmers and fishermen is a priority for States members. And I'm pleased that this is now being delivered in actions rather than mere words. In April 22, as Assistant Minister, I was pleased to present the Economic Framework for Rural Environment, a strategy which provided a foundation to help deliver additional government funding towards our agricultural sector, as well as a longer-term vision of increased sustainability. Later that year in November, as Minister, I pledged to build upon this and direct renewed government focus towards this important sector and support businesses across the entire rural economy. As a result, the government's total support has grown over £3 million in 2023 for the first time in over a decade. The budget growth was delivered via what is genuinely an innovative credit-based support scheme. It's a game-changing piece of rural policy development which enables the delivery of public money for public goods, as we reward those who deliver rural services with an open, accessible, accountable and fair value system. And it's really important to note that this is something else that we're beginning to export. I know we've been used as a case study. Our rural support scheme has been used as a case study in Wales. I was speaking yesterday to Joe, one of the speakers later. It's even been noted in the rest of the UK as well. In 24, thanks to that vote of the States Assembly, we've now been able to deliver over £6 million in rural support for the first time in over 20 years. There are those who may question the wisdom of sustaining an agricultural sector in a manner which is seemingly entirely dependent on the financial intervention of government. Let's think for a moment about the dependencies. It may just be that the majority of our population have dependencies, the principal one being a dependency on farmers, so that they have food to put on their table 3 times a day. For the most part, the food consumed by our community, however, arrives by ferry and is produced by other communities, many of whom have continued to make significant investment into their food system. As a community, we are not only therefore dependent on farmers, but also dependent on the financial interventions made by other governments and societies. £2.4 billion, for example, was used in England, or will be used in England next year. Over €60 billion in the EU. That's the reality of our food system. That's the food system our farmers have to operate in against other farmers in other countries receiving subsidies of that sort of scale. Our expectation that we are entitled to a cheap, abundant food belies a reality. That reality is that food comes at a cost. It is only right that our community bears a fair share of that cost. That's my belief. That, I believe, is Deputy Luce's belief, and that's the belief of the States Assembly. That cost is needed if we are to maintain a progressive and sustainable agricultural and food system which feeds our people, provides meaningful employment, and cares for our environment in a manner which our grandchildren will appreciate. I firmly believe that if we do not invest in our farming and fishing industries, those industries will not be able to compete and will disappear from island life. We've come that close. 2 years ago, I remarked that it was not too late for government to step up its support for agriculture, but it was not possible equally to leave it any later. I hope you agree with me that we have stepped up, that we have transformed our policies, budget, and the way funding is delivered. we have made and are making a difference, but I know there's much more to do. Food resilience, the living wage, our carbon footprint, climate change, and are all immediate concerns. So what are we doing about these issues? Firstly, and most importantly, we're working together. The Rural Forum has been meeting to provide a regular opportunity for industry and government to discuss and agree a collaborative approach to addressing those issues. During 24, we've also commissioned HIFA to undertake a food resilience report, which you'll hear more about later today. This has given us more evidence to underpin our activities for 2025. During the first part of next year, we will review the content of our economic framework for rural environment, and we will update the policy document to ensure we have the right information and tools to deal with these contemporary issues. We're also ready to deliver a revitalised agricultural loans fund. Paul Murphy of Jersey Business will be presenting that later today, and the details of how to access the fund. So I won't talk too much about that. But the fund will operate in a way that's needed to, and its reintroduction, I have to say, has not been a straightforward process. It's been, despite the state's proposition, that's only the beginning of the story. And if we don't mind, I wouldn't mind, well, perhaps we don't need another round of applause, but I do thank John Vautier for helping us navigate the waters from that state's decision to the delivery of the fund today. It hasn't been easy. John has been pulling what little hair he has left out, but he's remained patient. He's remained in the total belief that we can do this and we can get it over the line. And I'm delighted that today we can finally say payment has gone out. It does work. There is a process. It is open. You can apply. And thank you, John, for sticking with it and believing that this is the right thing to do. John, the work he's been doing has included changes to regulations that needed to go through a government process, law drafting, obviously lodging for debate those changes, States Assembly approval for those changes, creating a new loans board, which has met initially to approve the first revised loan application process. And for those who have expressed some frustration at the length of time this has taken, I can assure you that we have progressed, and John has progressed this as fast as he possibly could, in the face of what can only be said, I would say, is, let's just call it the stickiness of bureaucracy. And that's what he's been pushing against, but he has succeeded. It has not been an easy journey, but we got there. And yes, John, thank you for that. We now have sufficient money in the fund, and the current budget proposal, due to be debated next month, ensures we will have the £10 million fund established and accessible into the future. The living wage, I know, is another issue which many of you are concerned about. And I'm really pleased to confirm that over the next 2 years at least, the government will be introducing a programme to enable businesses to transition to the living wage. For the rural and marine sectors, this will increase levels of support by another £1.1 million for each of those 2 years. We then need to talk about the years afterwards, and I want to try to secure funding for those years as well, but at the moment we've got the next 2 years sorted. That means we will have in the rural support and marine support schemes almost £8 million next year. That's 10 times the amount of money that we had in 2018. Gone from £800,000 to almost £8 million. That's the journey we've been on. That's the scale of the challenge that we have succeeded in overcoming. And I thank you all for helping us do that. Our rural support scheme will deliver that extra money as enhanced credits for staff and additional funding for investments projects which may improve productivity. I will, and this came from a conversation with Fulham H, I will check where we are on the offsets, the accommodation offsets, because we need them to be as high as possible as well. Importantly, the flexibility of our rural support scheme credit matrix allows us to target those businesses most impacted by the proposed increase in the minimum wage. And I want to reassure you that we will do everything we can to ensure the impact of the increase is not detrimental to the rural and marine economies. This new package is one part of a much bigger plan, one that is aimed at helping all island businesses to become more productive, more efficient. In total, that package is worth over £20 million over 2 years. In addition to the rural and marine top-up I've just mentioned, there are grants to enable employers to invest in their staff and in themselves with the aim of improving productivity. There will also be grants aimed at the visitor economy sector and employee support for lower-income workers who have lived in Jersey for less than 5 years. In addition, that package and the Agricultural Loans Fund, there is another initiative being launched today by Impact Jersey. offering grants to developers to create tech-driven solutions which will enhance the local retail and visitor experience. While some of these initiatives will, of course, be of less interest to the people in this room, you should note that they all have a shared goal. We want to help Jersey businesses invest in themselves. It's a sad truth that at the moment, Jersey suffers from some of the lowest levels of business investment. Jersey's investment as a whole is less than half of the UK's, and the UK's is the lowest of any G7 nations. If we are going to achieve our ambition of becoming a high-performing, environmentally sustainable and technologically advanced small island economy by 2040, we have to invest in change. And I know that you are ready to do that. I hope these announcements announced today will support you, because you can also take part in some of those other grant schemes as well. The most important thing for me is that I want you to know that in me you have an advocate who will champion agriculture in the States and around the Council of Ministers table. I cannot and I will not be complacent. When I look at farming in Jersey, I see an ancient industry that has constantly reinvented itself and moved with the times. It is a sector that is innovated, changed, and improved to the extent that it provides every single islander with value, regardless of whether they buy local produce or not. That value can be seen in every well-maintained hedgerow, in every financial services advert that features a Jersey cow, in every UK TV show that highlights Jersey Royals, or indeed every American farmer who is staggered by the work of the Jersey herd in less developed countries. We all gain from the work that you do. And finally, that is being recognised. Government has stepped up and backs you to the hilt, because I know that your future success is also Jersey's future success. And as well as government, I think it's also worth making a shout out for the King, who we started with here as well. And the reason for that is I think it's really important. The King, through the Lieutenant Governor and the Crown Estate in Jersey, they are working hard for agriculture as well. I've been delighted with the support that has been provided directly from the King to the agriculture sector, working in different ways to government, but in complementary ways to government. And I know that they will likely make some announcements in the future, which I think are really, really exciting and are designed to support Jersey farming long into the future. And so I think that's something that we need to acknowledge as well. It's not just government, it is also the monarch. And I think that's quite outstanding. So thank you all so much for listening for me. I hope you enjoy the rest of today's conference. And I'm sure, like me, you're going to learn a lot. Thank you very, very much.
I'm very sorry, Kirsten, but we're not going to let you escape. You're going to have to come back up because we've got some questions. And the hot topic that we're starting with is Condor. Front page.
Do you mind
nice try to run away. Yeah, no, carry on. Front page of the JFP today, ministers offering to extend Condor's existing contract. Can you just give us a bit of background as to what has been going on?
Yeah, so the only way I can say this is I believe I and Jersey have been put in a very, very difficult position. It's difficult for me to be open about what I say, and that's principally for the legal ramifications, which I have a team of lawyers behind me telling me mostly what I cannot say. I will not sign Jersey up to anything but anything except a financially resilient ferry service that can deliver 15 years of a contract and can deliver that without any risk of having to turn to the government of Jersey for help. Also, I want a contract which clearly delivers new vessels over the course of that lifetime. In order to do that, there has to be that financial resilience. I've been put in a position where effectively I'm being asked to sign off on one which I don't believe provides the resilience that we're asking for. As a result, we've had to go through this rather meandering process, which has ended at the moment with having to end that joint process. I'm really, really sorry about that. It genuinely was pulled out of my hands. We're trying to get it back on track. And to do that, we have to work together with both companies. We will do that quickly. It will be a matter of weeks. But I know the Hospitality Association have been really concerned about visitor bookings for next year. That's totally understandable. And so, as with all politics, there's something of a compromise. So I said, right, we want to get those tickets out on sale. So in that sense, what we need to do is ask Condor, will they continue for 7 months under the existing operating agreement? That means we can get those tickets on sale. That means visitors can come to the island. In the meantime, we'll be working towards a decision on the actual successful bidder before the new year.
Could this have been avoided, though? Someone made the point yesterday at the Chamber lunch that you have known about this for 9 years.
In what respect?
In the fact that the contract was going to be coming up and something needed to be done to put someone else in place.
Yes, but that's not linked at all to 9 years or knowing about it for 9 years. That knowing about something for 9 years doesn't help, in the sense that if you're suddenly pushed into a particular position where I'm being told, got to go down that road, and I'm saying that is not a safe road, I will not do that to Jersey. I will not take us down an unsafe path just because it's easier to give in to pressure than it is to stand up and say, no, I want what is right for Jersey. I want what is right for islanders. That's what I'm standing firm on. And I know that there are others. The Council of Ministers have seen what I see. Some states members have seen what I see. They understand why I am doing this. They know this is not some fun just to get me on the front page of the paper or to get me being ripped apart on Facebook. I'm not doing any of that.
Or ask questions here at the farming conference.
There are really good reasons for what I'm doing, and all I can say to you is I'm doing this to protect us and our island. That's why I'm doing it. And please bear with me. I do ask, I know it says a lot of politicians saying, trust me, I'm a politician. But please trust me. I do ask for that trust, because this is being done for very good reason.
On that point, then, there's a question here about the freight links. Is there any particular benefit of any of the bids for farmers?
Yes, so one of the things, and this was part of the tender process, and at least one of the bidders has delivered on this, is we asked for a flat rate card for freight. And that's really, really important, because a flat, entirely transparent rate card then enables us to understand it, to help bring competition into the freight logistics market, so competition can happen on levels of service and things like this. It also means we know what it then costs to bring goods to the islands and how that fuels or doesn't fuel, how that affects the cost of living in the island. And yeah, to have a flat rate card would be a huge leap forward for effectively the infrastructure that underpins this island and brings the food onto our plates every day. And so that is something which is key, and would mean that you as farmers will always know what you're paying to export your goods to the UK. That, I think, is a huge step forward, and at least one of those delivered on that.
Well, let's just look at a few of these other questions. Someone asking here, would it be possible or beneficial to remove GST on locally produced food to promote locally grown produce to the consumer?
In the margins, you could argue that it could. I don't think 5% is enough to make such a big difference. I know, obviously, I can hear Treasury in the background saying the admin burden, the admin burden. Yes, there's an admin burden to it as well. So in that sense, from a government's perspective, there is greater cost, and it does bring more complexity to GST. I'm not convinced that 5% would make such a significant difference that consumers would act on that 5%.
The question then that leads on from that, would government consider a Trump-style tax on imported produce then, that to help level the local market?
What's a Trump-style tax?
Well, he was saying, wasn't he, that he was going to tax people for bringing produce back in tariffs, into the country, because they were going to move everything out to Mexico.
So
very relevant, but anyway,
no.
would you consider it?
What I will say is only if you want to see the cost of living rise significantly in the island. So I think and I think a lot of economists see this with Trump's economic policies around tariffs. It sounds brilliant. Yes, let's protect our market. Let's put tariffs up, make everything more expensive that comes into the country, then people will buy local. That's not really how it works, especially in Jersey, where 90-something% of our food is imported. All that would happen is you'd see the cost of living rise significantly in the island. It wouldn't encourage any more production in the island. It wouldn't necessarily encourage any more consumption in the island. So I don't believe tariffs are the way to do that.
OK, moving on to this one. What strategies are being implemented to improve Jersey's food systems to sustainability, reduce waste, boost local production and enhance food security? I know you've touched on that, but can you give us any more detail?
I'd say the rural economy strategy. That's exactly what that does. That's what we're doing. That's why we're working with people like Haifa to try to improve food system sustainability, to reduce waste. It is all of those, including boosting local production, are at the heart of the rural economy strategy. So you want a strategy that does that? Go and read the rural economy strategy.
OK, this from Glyn Mitchell. Jersey has great professionals and ecological economic strategies. Where's he jumped to? Just here. Yeah. What measures, recording and verification processes are government putting in place to support us?
So there's a wide range, and the better person to speak to on that is John Botier, but I don't just want to throw more onto John. Also people in the Environment Department, so Willie's over there from the Environment Department. There are a range of monitoring processes in place, but I am not best to tick them off and go through them all. But please do ask Willie or John, they'll help.
Are you satisfied that all officers realise the importance of a diversified economy and the need to execute decisions of ministers and the Assembly in a timely fashion?
Absolutely. There's my answer.
Is that it?
Yeah.
OK, Kirsten, thank you so much, Minister. It's been great to have you with us today. And thank you so much for all that you have done over the last couple of years to support the industry. We're very grateful.
Thank you.